So today we're going to be going over how to get more qualified leads through paid ads with pixel priming. Now, this is something that requires zero cost, it's fast to set up, but it can have a massive impact on whether any given campaign or sales funnel is actually going to be successful for the business. If you don't know me, my name's Jordan Mithasamy. Over the past 10 years, I've created 300 plus funnels in 60 plus different industries and niches, and my links are in the description below. So to get into the content, I want to touch on why this matters in the first place. So when you launch a new funnel and campaign, there are always going to be unknowns. So you never know if your ads will actually resonate with your dream buyer. You don't know if the ads are going to be served to the right people. You might have a message that resonates with multiple markets or sub-markets. And then on top of that, you're not sure if the right people are actually opting in for the lead magnet and hence seeing your irresistible offer on the next page. Also, when we start scaling out to new audiences, that lead quality can sometimes just suddenly drop and the wrong types of people can start coming through the funnel. So all of this means that the absolute last thing we want is for a fresh pixel or a conversion event that you're running to get trained on the wrong signals. And it's also super important when you're working with a limited budget or you have broader messaging in the campaign to implement some of the practices I'm going to run through in this video. Also, as I mentioned, sometimes that dream outcome or headline that you have on the page can pull in a lot of rubbish leads, people that aren't financially qualified or that aren't going to be a good fit for your product or service. And also, if you don't set a qualifier and you have some of that broader messaging, your pixel starts thinking that those are the types of leads that you want, and it starts wrongly chasing after more of them. So little bit of a preface to the content here, but that's why it's important. I really want to touch on like pixel priming itself now, how it works and how to go about setting it up, right? It's really about teaching, assisting, and guiding the ad platform on what a qualified lead actually means for your business, or what specific type of lead you want to be attracting for any given funnel or ad campaign. When you give Meta or Google the wrong data, they'll ultimately go and find more of the wrong people. And when you give them the right data, they'll go find more of the right people. So it's very simple. And it's often best practice to start priming any pixel before we continue spending money on a mediocre campaign or we consider scaling anything, right? So to touch on an example here, if we're offering fast business funding solutions, campaign angles such as this, fast capital getting funded within a tight time frame, and we have a bunch of questions here in order for someone to get their quote. With this, if we can only service businesses that are doing more than 30K a month revenue, so if we look at this question here, gross monthly revenue, then we ultimately don't want to fire any kind of primary conversion event when the lead selects less than $30,000 as their gross monthly revenue. Any kind of conversion event that we're optimizing the campaign for, we don't want to be optimizing based on that data of leads that don't meet the financial qualifier in this case. So setting up an opt-in qualifier to manipulate the data, this is the solution, right? And what we do here is we add a simple qualifying field to the opt-in form. And to recap on opt-in form, this is that form someone completes when they're opting in for our lead magnet. So that might be an ebook, might be a free training, checklist, whatever that lead magnet and that bait looks like. The same logic that I'm going to go through applies to all the touch points throughout the funnel. However, the opt-in form is where we have the highest volume and the highest velocity of new data coming in. Obviously, opt-in leads cost far less than held calls further down the funnel. And the further down the funnel you go, the slower and more expensive that data becomes to acquire and to also monitor as well. So that's why it's usually best to start validating the opt-ins first before we focus on optimizing and conditioning those deeper funnel events. Into the qualifying question itself. So this can be along the lines of, are you currently generating at least 50K a month in revenue? Do you own or manage the business or your own business? What's your role or job title within the company? And this one simple field does two things. It gives you data on who your messaging is attracting, even without calling and speaking to those opt-in leads. And then, like I said, it also tells the ad platform what a lead or specific conversion means to you. So what your definition of that conversion event is based on the answer they select on the qualifier. Another quick note before we get into the specifics, not all qualifier questions are equal or best suited for any given scenario. Sometimes we don't want it to feel too invasive or too intimidating. Therefore, in that case, we might not go for something like a direct revenue question, or instead of asking something like, do you have a business? You could ask which best describes your business, and then giving higher level inclusive or more inclusive answers like, I don't have a business yet, new startup, early stages of growth, etc. Things that are a bit more broader and a bit more general. And the goal with this question is to make the unqualified leads answer truthfully, right? If it's too black and white, if we use an example like, do you have a business? And it's just a yes or no, we're probably going to get a lot of people clicking yes just because they want to see what's next. And it's a bit too obvious that that's who we want to be bringing through the funnel. In this example here, by saying, I don't have a business yet, it still feels like they belong and they answer honestly, which helps you keep the data clean. So just something to keep in mind when you're selecting that specific qualifying question. We want it to act as bait for the unqualified leads. Into conditional logic. So very simple, but once that field is added to the form, we want to set up logic that fires a conversion event and it filters when it fires, right? So we can do this in two ways. Either we redirect the unqualified leads to a non-pixel page, which means we're just redirecting them to basically a duplicate version of the offer page, the landing page. Could also be a booking page or a thank you page as well. I know I mentioned opt-ins specifically, but it also applies to those pages further down the funnel as well. Ultimately, that duplicate version of the page doesn't have an event, a pixel event that fires when they land there, and therefore the ad platforms don't see that as a conversion. The other way to do it is you fire the lead conversion in a workflow if the qualifier meets your criteria. So this might be when you're using server-side tracking or conversion APIs. Here's an example of how that looks in Go High Level, for example, submitting a form, a condition on that form response. And basically if they, haven't selected the answer that we don't want them to, if they're a qualified lead, then it's going to fire a Facebook event. The big point here is just to stop that bad data being fired or firing the lead event or the complete registration event or whatever it is. A couple notes here for scaling too. So common question is, when do I remove the qualifier? Should I remove it? What are the sort of criteria or the thought process that goes into it? The way I always look at it is once your messaging is dialed in, you've validated the leads coming through, your pixel's trained, you can remove the qualifier to quickly boost the conversion rate and lower the cost per lead. This is obviously going to help at scaling, but since the pixel already knows who to look for, now you can optimize for volume and try and lower the costs a bit. So for example, I've had an ebook opt-in page convert at 15% and then go up to anywhere between a 17 to 19% conversion rate once that qualifier is removed. And that conversion rate boost in general is highly variable across different campaigns. But obviously when scaling and you're spending hundreds of thousands a month, a 2 to 4% boost in opt-in conversion rate can have a big impact on the bottom line. The other note here for scaling is lead quality fluctuations. So if we've already dialed in everything, we're happy with the costs and the quantitative metrics throughout the funnel. And if we've had a funnel work previously and we start seeing those fluctuations in lead quality at scale, things like big hits to the show-up rate, conversion rates might start dropping. We notice there's more unqualified leads actually showing up to the sales calls. One thing we might want to do and consider is putting that qualifying question back on the opt-in form. What this does is it helps us control the lead quality, control the lead flow a little bit more, and really just tell the app platforms right then and there that they're not sending us the types of people we want. So from there, we can go on to see the form responses. We can call the opt-in leads, fully understand the situation, and then just make a judgment on either we need to adjust the ads and funnel messaging, change up the creatives, change up the angle, and do that as required, and then proceed to scale the budget back up again. Quick recap. So when launching new funnels or trying to improve existing ones, we just want to add a simple qualifier field to the opt-in form. As I said, in most cases, this is best practice when you first launch a new funnel, especially if there's some risky messaging in there as well. Then the next one is stopping those unqualified users from firing the conversion event. So through conditional logic, form redirect options, and automation workflows. And then lastly, let the ad platform learn what a qualified lead really looks like, so you can ultimately spend the ad dollars and scale up more confidently. Hope you got value out of today's video, and make sure you subscribe below. I'll see you in the next one.